Yeah, MAGA is definitely over. And we're about to dig a little deeper into that and watch a little bit of commentary. Clint has a great selection of clips teed up for us here that we're going to roll through with him.
Conspiracy theories are entering a dangerous...
Information is the oxygen of the democracy.
There's so much evidence out there that even if less than 1% is true, that would be enough to collapse the current paradigm and change the whole planet.
Republicans have to talk about it.
And does that mean the H-1B visa thing will not be a big priority for your administration? Because if you want to raise wages for American workers, you can't flood the country with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of foreign workers.
You also do have to bring in talent. When
we have plenty of talented people.
No, you don't.
We don't have talented people.
No, you don't. No, you don't. Oof. 6 words that may have just ended the MAGA train. Donald Trump, a guy who campaigned repeatedly on the opposite, is now saying, nope, we cannot do it without immigration. Don't take my word for it. Here's Donald Trump on the campaign trail many, many moons ago when he still actually believed in putting America first.
Well, first of all, I think, and I know the H-1B very well, and it's something that I frankly use, and I shouldn't be allowed to use. We shouldn't have it. Very, very bad for workers. And second of all, I think it's very important to say, well,
important distinction there, homie, crowned with tinfoil. He didn't say, no, we don't. He said, no, you don't. You. He's not part of the we. He's part of the globalist cabal of money managers and property developers and corporate executives and pedophiles and blackmailers and criminals. He's in the club big time.
I'm a businessman, and I have to do what I have to do, and it's sitting there waiting for you, but it's very bad. It's very bad for business in terms of, it's very bad for our workers, and it's unfair for our workers, and we should end it.
So campaign Donald Trump, H-1Bs are a scam, and they're basically being taken advantage of by corporations to try and undercut the wages of the domestic population. And then President Donald Trump in 2025 saying, we don't have talented people here that can do these.
Thanks for pulling those clips for us, Clint. Appreciate it.
Jobs. You cannot possibly take an American kid and train him on how to make batteries the way the South Koreans do.
You don't.
We don't have talented people here.
No, you don't have certain talents, and people have to learn. You can't take people off an unemployment line and say, I'm going to put you into a factory, we're going to make missiles, or I'm going to put
How did we ever do it before?
Well, let me just
Oh, I don't normally get down with Laura Ingraham, but that was a funny fucking question. How did we do it before? Like, how do we make missiles? Like, did we know how to make missiles before we made missiles? Like, come on, bro. Think it through. What do you think, Gigi? Do you know how to make a missile? I think Gigi needs to go potty. I'm going to play this for a second while I let her out. I'll be right back.
Example, in Georgia, they raided because they wanted illegal immigrants. They had people from South Korea that made batteries all their lives. You know, making batteries are very complicated. It's not an easy thing and very dangerous. A lot of explosions, a lot of problems. They had like 500 or 600 people, early stages, to make batteries and to teach people how to do it. Well, they wanted them to get out of the country. You're going to need that, Laura. I mean, I know you and I disagree on this. You can't just say, take people off an unemployment line who haven't worked in 5 years, and they're going to start making missiles. It doesn't work that way.
All right. Well, aside from the fact that that's just patently false, and aside from the fact that like the university system in America, despite all of its flaws, actually does produce kids that are capable of doing a lot of things, even if you just assume for a second that the university system does not do those things, it does not prepare anybody to do anything of value, which oftentimes that is true, well then how about you actually take a holistic approach to this? How about you actually do something to help these kids? How about you...
Yeah, right? Get fucked, America. It's not like it's the president's job to make sure that America has a bright future with educated young people. No. The president's job is to enrich his donors and billionaire class buddies at all of our expense. Because this is America.
You acknowledge the fact that the printing and borrowing and spending that you did in your first term ultimately destroyed the dollar and made it extraordinarily challenging for these kids to get ahead. How about you acknowledge the fact that the lockdown era and the forced social distancing and the masking for kids while they were in high school in the most important formative years of their life, or younger for that matter, they were essentially tormented by some of your policies. How about you acknowledge that? How about you acknowledge the fact that the DEI environment completely destroyed the education system and made it so that professors were ultimately just demeaning all of the men in their class, or all of the boys, I should say, and just breaking their spirits. And now you expect them to just bounce back after that in the Me Too environment and cancel culture, and then being put through lockdowns, and then put through the most progressive garbage education system you can imagine, and then you go, they can't build batteries. Okay, whose fault is that though? Look, I'm not saying that the state is required to make us capable of doing anything. Quite the contrary. I'm arguing...
No. You are required to make yourself capable of doing anything, and you are capable of doing anything, because these assholes ain't going to help. They ain't going to help. They never have. They are not going to start anytime soon. It's up to y'all. So teach your kids, homeschool if you can, get them asking questions, support their interests, and if you're an adult, keep learning, because the economy is going to keep getting worse. The dollar is going to keep getting weaker. Everything's it's not gonna get better. Okay, we are definitely on our own, unless some miracle happens. And you shouldn't bet your future and your family's future, whether you have it already or not, on a miracle.
Doing quite specifically the inverse of that the state has hindered the development of these children. And now, instead of acknowledging the damage done by not just Donald Trump, but every politician in our lifetimes, instead he goes the opposite direction and he says, well, they're useless. They can't actually accomplish any of these things. So we're going to replace them with immigrants via H-1Bs or otherwise. In what world is that America first? In what world is that making America great again? It comes across much more obviously to be an appeal to your donors, to the special interests that clearly run your White House and run you. And I think that's what you're based.
Right from day one. You remember day one when he trotted out Larry Ellison to tell us about his big Stargate AI project, and they were going to use their massive new AI data centers that we were all going to subsidize in order to give us custom-made, personal AI-developed mRNA vaccines. They're going to be totally safe, by the way. They're going to be totally safe. They're just going to modify your DNA. But AI's got it. It's not like AI's ever made a mistake before. It's going to be great. That was day one of his presidency. It was a major foreshadow of what was to come.
Is reflecting on and realizing and coming to terms with is that you're a fraud. That what brought you to power is not what keeps you in power. That the people that keep you in power don't want to focus on actually remedying any of the issues that have plagued young people in this country, but instead to replace them entirely, which is, in effect, very little difference from what the Joe Biden or Kamala Harris presidency would have delivered for them. So when you see your poll numbers tanking, just remember, it's not us that abandoned you, it's you that abandoned us.
The Trump administration seems to have been hiding these emails. They're not good. Okay.
It's a sentence that we've been hearing a lot lately. A lot of people have been saying that. Nick Fuentes has been saying that for a while now. Yeah. It's not that we abandoned anyone. We voted for what we were told we were voting. Like, we were all very clear about what we were voting for. And a lot of you guys probably didn't even vote for it because maybe you were smarter than me.
Okay, they are completely indefensible, but I already told you, I was done with MAGA at the moment he looked us in the face and he said, what files, right? What are we still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? Pam Bondi said it was a Democrat hoax.
Hey, Jay, you don't have to trust Candace. That's fine. You know, it's good to have people that think differently around you and to think differently than other people. I know her personally, and so I have extra data to base my trust off of. But at the same time, I don't just take everything she says like thoughtlessly at face value. Candace makes mistakes. That's fine. I make mistakes too. So think for yourself. That's all good.
No, I think the entire nation has been hoaxed by Republicans and Democrats, and there are pervert elites that sit at the top.
And you can point to many different dates throughout the past couple months that would probably be good indications that the Trump train was totally off the rails. For me, the most obvious date or the inflection point that really jumps to mind was July 8th when this happened.
Yeah, turn up my mic volume a little bit. Oh, it actually got dotted down a little bit. Yeah, like more like that. Yeah.
Yesterday, Jeffrey Epstein left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former labor secretary who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Costa, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say—
Are we still talking about this guy? This creep? This Epstein? That's a hoax, by the way.
Why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the—
Yeah, sure. Could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time? And do you feel like—
Yeah, that was the moment when we knew we knew that we were cooked for sure. Some of y'all woke up before that, but
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this where we're having some of the greatest success.
Are we still talking about Epstein? Still? I mean, you can answer the question if you want, but like, are we really? Haven't we moved on? That creep? No, actually, we haven't moved on. And particularly given that your entire cabinet is filled with people that they promised disclosures and justice in that arena, we're not going to move on.
Yeah, we're not going to move on. No, we are not.
Including yourself. So
yeah, tired of winning.
That's still beyond the pale.
The evidence we have in our files clearly indicates that it was, in fact, a suicide.
We released the video showing definitively the video was not conclusive.
Saw someone comment earlier today that Epstein had better camera systems in his house to get blackmail than our government apparently had in his prison to make sure that he stood trial. Whoops.
A Jeffrey Epstein story is a big deal. Please do not let that story go. Keep your eye on it. Jeffrey Epstein isn't with us anymore, and nobody—
Right on, Dan. We're keeping our eye on it. We won't let it go. Amen, Dan. Roger that. 10-4, buddy.
He seems to want to talk about it.
But that was kind of the moment where I started to realize that there's something deeply, deeply wrong here. No, I'm not going to pretend as if I was the first person to realize that. A lot of people, including Nick Fuentes, identified this before Trump was elected president for a second time, and I stand corrected. They were right. They got it right. Donald Trump was, in fact, compromised. And I think he was compromised by his donors. Elon Musk also got it right, it looks like to me, when he started to point out that the Epstein files are being buried because of Donald Trump's relationship to him. Now, I've never claimed, and I don't know for a fact, as to whether or not Trump did anything illegal in the Epstein network operation thing. But what I do know is that thanks to Dropsite News over the past few weeks, they've been doing incredible work thanks to this email leak of, I think it was Ehud Barak's emails that got put online.
Big time.
No other corporate journalist is doing this deep diving, of course, because they are all essentially forbidden from doing so, I guess. But
you know what else? I should probably report on it more, but from those original Ehud Barak emails he's talking about, which happened months ago, I actually put together, and I put a video out about it, that you can pretty clearly surmise that Jeffrey Epstein provided the majority of like 40 to 60% of, at least, the funding for Peter Thiel's investment company, Valar Ventures, for the years of like 2014 to 2015 for, I think it was Valar Funds number 2 and 3, which is not all of Peter Thiel's ventures, but it was an entire company that he was running that has now grown quite big. And at the time, he was basically the lifeline that seemed to fund like a huge portion of Peter Thiel's company. So that was interesting to see. And it's like right there in public, like it's there in the public filings. It's not hard to put together. And the emails kind of like put a couple of extra pieces together about that relationship and their meeting. So there's a lot more thread to pull out of the Peter Thiel connection to Jeffrey Epstein.
Dropsite News has been all over this, and God bless them for it. What they've proven, beyond a shadow of a doubt in my mind, is that Jeffrey Epstein was, in fact, an Israeli asset. And this is evidenced by the fact that he had intelligence agents that were staying at his property in Manhattan repeatedly.
And to be fair, we already knew that. We knew that even before this was published, we knew that, but this was the nail in that coffin. We've known that for sure ever since this book came out. And if you haven't read it, don't talk shit.
These are Israeli intelligence agents. They also had the former prime minister of Israel, who was in constant communication with Jeffrey Epstein and stayed with him 36 times over a few-year period, which is more often than I see my own family. I find that utterly bizarre.
Yeah.
So, yeah, to believe that he wasn't at least an asset of Israel, I think is totally ridiculous. So then you have to connect some dots, and this is where it gets uncomfortable for those that are tinfoil averse. But the obvious dots to connect is that Donald Trump is funded to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars by pro-Israel donors. Also, those same donors are responsible for the primary campaign against Thomas Massie. Why would they be so opposed to Thomas Massie? Well, Thomas Massie.
The book I just showed is mandatory reading, One Nation Under Blackmail by Whitney Webb. Very dense reading, not for the faint of heart. Shout out to Whitney. But definitely buy yourself a copy. Take some notes. It's going to take a while, but that book blows everything wide open. And I'm thinking about starting a book club next year where we go through them slower and like piece by piece. And I sort of break it down, summarize, provide evidence, pull her sources in and other sourcing, and kind of make an accessible series that goes through that book, so that people that are not going to ever read the whole thing can still get the whole thing. I bet that Whitney would hate it. I bet that Whitney will have all sorts of negative words for that, but that's okay. Because her contribution is so monumental, but it's hamstrung by how like autistically intelligent she is. So most people have not actually read the book, even though they know like the general stuff that's in it. Most people aren't actually going to be reading that book. So I think that might be where we start the book club next year. It'd be a lot of work, but it'd be really fun. And it'd be a great exercise for me to go back through everything in it in a slowed down, like notated way digitally, so that I can share all of that and put it all together for us. That'd be really interesting.
Is the one who's responsible today for having passed the bill that is essentially going to force a vote as to whether or not to release the Epstein files. So why is it that these pro-Israel donors are so deeply concerned about the disclosures of the Epstein files? Could it be that, in fact, Jeffrey Epstein was an Israeli asset, that he was, in fact, building compromat files against the rich and powerful, both in politics and corporate America? I would argue that the preponderance of evidence says yes. Yeah. That's exactly what his role was. Not to say that he didn't have other roles. He was also a major financial.
Shout out to Butterfly NCTR for gifting a bunch of subs in the chat. Thank you. Are sub tiers like enabled? I don't see anything besides tier 1. In the background, they are. I have 3 different names for the sub tiers. And I thought they were funny. But maybe they're still reviewing my names because I chose controversial names. I'm pretty sure they're enabled, though. I'm pretty sure that tier 2, you get on Hillary Clinton's hit list. But y'all have to let me know.
Wheeler and dealer in the gray and black market. I think he did that on behalf of multiple state intelligence agencies, including Israel, as well as our own, probably the UK, or MI6, and also arguably the French. So he's a jack of all trades. So he was serving a lot of purposes. But why is Donald Trump, who is being smeared as having participated in this underage sex trafficking operation, why would he not want full disclosure, particularly if he's innocent? Well, the obvious answer would be that his donors want those disclosures not to be made. And as a consequence, Donald Trump is unwilling to do what's right, to do what he promised to do, which is to be transparent. So I think that's the obvious dot connection there, is that, in fact, this intelligence operation is being buried by the sitting president of the United States because of his donors. It could be argued that there's additional pressure being levied against him, be that violent, financial, or otherwise. I can't say definitively why. All I know is that Donald Trump is lying. Donald Trump is covering up. Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are doing the same, despite promises to the contrary when they were trying to get in positions of power. Now that they sit in those positions of power, they say there's no there there. Why is there no there there? Dan, Kash, and if there is no there there, why is it not your job to present me the there? Could you give me the there? I guess not. So my answer for all of this at this junction, because I think it's the most logical conclusion to come to, is that the entire Trump administration is essentially under the thumb of a foreign government or foreign intelligence agency. And tragically, that has resulted in a tremendous amount of injustice to the American people. And then you wonder why Tucker Carlson has flipped against Israel.
You want people to follow you? You want to sell your ideas to them? You want to convince them that what you're saying is true? Show some love for them. Demonstrate that you care about them. Why are we doing this? Because we think it's better for you.
Tucker on 1.5 speed sounds pretty funny. Not going to lie. We're basically doing a blood libel against him by playing this on 1.5 speed right now.
Shapiro and all of these guys, they don't make an effort to do that because they don't feel that way at all. Shut up, cattle. You're a Nazi. Give us the money for our preferred little country. Hey, at all. Shut up, cattle. You're a Nazi. Give us the money for our preferred little country.
Damn straight. Or
else we're going to denounce you. Man, those attitudes are incompatible with leadership. I really care so much about this thing, and you better care about it too, or else I'm going to attack you and deplatform you. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's illegitimate, actually. And if you keep it up, you're flirting with, real backlash, like a real one. Not Nick Fuentes, like a real one. So cool it. Listen to other people. Don't treat them like cattle. Treat them like human beings.
Or you wonder why Nick Fuentes has grown in prominence. Well, it's because we have eyes and we have ears, and we pay attention, and we know that something is awry. Something is wrong here.
What we want is for someone to unashamedly and single-mindedly advocate for Americans, and Americans only. We want someone to say, the only thing I care about is helping Americans. The only people I care about in the world are Americans. And we don't want to just hear that, but we want to see the action taken as well. I've seen some people on social media say, hey, it's America first, but not America only. I disagree. I think it is America only.
Something is totally counter to what our expectations were and to what your promises were, and you are failing egregiously. Just yesterday, he also promised that he would be bringing in Chinese students to fill our university systems on an annual basis. That is no...
Yeah, there's posts like this going mad viral on X right now. This Patriotic Blonde posting about these posts that are all going viral, and her post went mega viral too, 7.6 million impressions. So much for America being made great by our man Don.
Small figure.
Folks are not thrilled about this idea of hundreds of thousands of foreign students in the United States. We have about 350,000 Chinese. One point during COVID, you were going to push up, get them out, but that was pulled back. You've said as many as 600,000 Chinese students could come to the United States. Why, sir, is that a pro-MAGA position when so many American kids want to go to school and there are places not for them, and these universities are getting rich off Chinese money?
Sure. Never said about China, but we do have a lot of people coming in from China. We always have China and other countries. We also have a massive system of colleges and universities. And if we were to cut that in half, which perhaps makes some people happy, you would have half the colleges in the United States go out of business. Well, I think it's a big deal.
Why would he do that? Well, because he says otherwise the collegiate system in America would collapse. To which I say, good. Since when are we in the business of defending academia? Academia, which has destroyed the minds of young people across this country for decades now. Why would we possibly be doing so? Why would we possibly be doing anything to keep them afloat? Much less if China is our enemy, our top enemy, according to Trump and many other people that talk about China as if that's a fact. Why would we be bringing in over 500,000 of their kids every year to study at our universities? And moreover, how is it making America great again to essentially replace the American domestic population that wants to go to those universities but no longer can because those seats are being filled by foreigners? Here's another uncomfortable dot to connect, but many people are...
So she did repost Clint, which is cool. But she reposted him because this is left-right. This is a left-right part of it. And so this piece, which is astonishing from Clint, is a piece about Democratic Congress people being fed questions by Jeffrey Epstein to ask in, official hearings. And there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of people that were emailing Jeffrey Epstein to basically give him their pulpit so that he could suggest things that policies they should enact or things they should suggest or questions they should ask. And so her retweeting Clint on this is not anything great. In my opinion, it's just a bunch of nonsense. It's just more left-right divide that's getting ginned up by the administration.
We're now theorizing that perhaps the 600,000 Chinese students being allowed into our country, perhaps that was the carrot that was dangled or the trade that was made in order to get China to allow for the ByteDance or TikTok sale to.
Did you hear what he's saying? Clint is connecting the dots that maybe the carrot that was dangled to ByteDance and to their Chinese investors in order to get the sale of TikTok to go through was, hey, we'll let you send a whole bunch of foreign nationals over to our country to go to school and totally not be spies and totally not steal more military technology like China loves to fucking do. Maybe that had something to do with the TikTok deal for Israel. Obviously. Because let's be real. Larry Ellison didn't buy it for America First interests. I can hardly post a video on TikTok anymore without getting a strike, so I don't post on TikTok anymore. So yeah, Clint has a great point connecting those dots.
The Israeli side. But regardless, does that possibly mean that we are putting America first? I don't see how you can make that argument. Certainly not. You're not putting American students first. That's for sure. Okay, well then how about the J6 justice, seeing as you had a couple hundred plainclothes.
Have you guys been following the J6 pipe bomber story and all the J6 disclosures that are coming out that we're slowly accumulating on X mostly? It's easy to miss it if you don't pay attention. Just how much we're learning about January 6th. It's pretty crazy. From like hundreds and hundreds of police officers and FBI agents disguised as Trump supporters in the crowd, agitating, starting violence, breaking and entering, and things like that. As well as the pipe bomber has now been identified as apparently a Capitol police officer. And then also Kyle Seraphin, think of him what you want, but allegedly he was, because he's ex-FBI, he's a whistleblower on the FBI, and allegedly he was investigating the pipe bomber and then was pulled off the investigation when they were getting close to zeroing in on the actual lady. There's all sorts of swirling evidence. Also, someone mentioned directed energy weapons used on the crowd to agitate people. Not like Jewish space lasers, but like real directed energy weapons that like fuck with your head, which is a whole other ball game. I haven't confirmed that part yet, but a lot of this other reporting is pretty fucking solid. And it was all broken by independent journalists, not by the FBI.
Police officers that were in the crowd on J6. How about the fact that we now have pretty damn good evidence through that data analysis from the Blaze that it looks as if the FBI pulled Kyle Seraphin and his surveillance team off of the J5 pipe bomber, the guy who, or gal actually, who was what it appears to be framing the J6ers as terrorists, assuming that they did not get catalyzed into rioting and storming.
If you've never looked into the original videos and evidence around the J5 pipe bomber, it's super sus. If you've actually seen the original video surveillance footage that they used to like gin up the original media spin about like, look at this Trump supporter planting bombs. But then like it comes out that it was so suspicious how and where it was planted and how many people just walked right, like how many like police officers and law enforcement agents walked right past it and very clearly seemed to like intentionally not see it. And then right at like the right time, it's like, oh, look, I'm going to walk over here and find a pipe bomb. It was all very sus from the start, but now it's coming back around, right? Yeah, it's very old news, but now the pieces are getting put together. And some people are saying it's like Ryan Mata's got some clips where he's like, this is like the biggest like clandestine intelligence operation on American soil since like Watergate. But it's like, yeah, sort of. But like Epstein is way bigger. But it's big because you have to think about all the spin around J6 and the division around J6 and the attempt to paint MAGA and America First as terrorists. The people that got locked up, it was huge. And that was even though they failed to get as much as they wanted. They wanted it to be way worse. They wanted real violence. But unfortunately, MAGA people aren't actually all that violent. And so most of them just had a nice, simple walking tour of the Capitol, with a few hooligans being silly gooses too.
The Capitol, which they did, so I guess you didn't have to blow up that bomb. So aside from the pardons for the J6ers, we're not really getting justice when it comes to the entrapment scheme that they fell victim to. Shouldn't people be put in prison for doing that? Yeah. I would say definitely. How about there being peace in Ukraine? Nope, not that either. Another campaign promise that has fallen flat. Got no Epstein disclosures. You got 600,000 Chinese students, maximum H-1Bs, and I guess we can now take out a 50-year mortgage to buy a starter home for $750,000, assuming I don't get deported for anti-Semitism. So yeah, if you rattle off this entire list and then you come to the conclusion that we're abandoning Donald Trump, I don't think you remember at all what he campaigned on. He campaigned in opposition to everything I just detailed. So when I say that MAGA is not divided, MAGA is dead, I don't think I'm overstating it. In fact, one might argue I'm late to the game, that it fell apart many months ago. And that's sad, because I thought that the coalition that Donald Trump put together was one of the most remarkable things I have ever seen in my life of covering politics.
Yeah, hope is so seductive. It's so inviting to have hope for America when it looks like we're having a political coalition put together that's going to do something. Yeah. Welcome to the new homies getting in the chat here. We got a bunch of people coming from the YouTube video. Shout out to all the new homies jumping in. Welcome to the party. We're having a Sunday morning news run through, and we're going to get to some fun tinfoil in a minute here about our boy Epstein.
To have the entire MAGA alliance, which was obviously the America First camp, the non-interventionist, but also more nativistic, nationalistic side of the conservative wing. You get the Make America Healthy Again, the RFK Juniors, the people that realize that our food supply is largely toxic and our diets are atrocious, and pharma is a huge problem, and in fact, not a solution in many regards.
The psyop inside of MAGA is a real one, too. It's been quiet. No one's really been super loud about that story. It's not really gained a lot of attention. But MAGA got seriously infiltrated and undermined too. And I think there will be more stories on that in the future. But yeah. Why did you get excited about tinfoil? Of course you got excited about tinfoil, because tinfoil is like all that we have to hold on to these days.
That was an incredible part of the alliance. Then you bring in the libertarians and the non-interventionists and the actual truly America First people like myself. And we're like, okay, this is an interesting alliance. This is actually building to something.
Oh, 9/11 definitely balls into all of this. Oh, yes. I was about to do a 9/11 stream this morning for just that purpose. 9/11 is the biggest ball in all of this. 9/11 is the final straw that needs to fall. Like 9/11 is like the whole thing. When 9/11 starts to break open, that is when it all falls. And it really is kind of like it's symbolic in a way, the way that we're slowly unwrapping these narratives and slowly walking our way backwards. October 7th allowed for a huge tear in the narrative control. And then COVID and Trump's current administration, so like out from October 7th, tore this divide in the Israel-controlled media environment. And once you tear open the media environment, free speech opens up into all these other corridors, and all these people that were wronged by either and both political parties, they've all got a conspiracy that they now realized was true. And so that starts to get everyone opening back up to like start to get a little more red-pilled on all these other pieces that they start to see the evidence. And Epstein is a big part of that. But a lot of people aren't ready for 9/11 yet. And 9/11 is the biggest one. 9/11 is the one. And when 9/11 gets truly addressed, that is when the whole world changes. That's when America changes. That's when we break free. 9/11 didn't start it all. No, it did not start it all. We were well into this problem by 9/11. Jeffrey Epstein was active in the 80s and very active in the 90s, and he definitely ramped up through the 2000s. But like the infiltration, the control, the subversion, the corruption, that's been going on long before 9/11. But 9/11 is the biggest nexus point in everything. And we will definitely be talking about 9/11 in the months to come, because Building 7 collapsed on its own. And a lot of people knew in advance that it was going to do that.
A young upstart who's got some impressive rhetoric and seems that he may be on our side of the fence too. And then you bring in a whole bunch of other people, Elon Musk and Tulsi Gabbard, and it starts to look like, wow, this is a dream team. This is Brett Weinstein's of the world. We're actually putting together an Avengers of sorts to try and save the country. And it felt good. And there was hope for a time. Genuinely, I felt like there was a chance. I wasn't overly optimistic, but it did seem, given the atrocious political establishment that existed prior, this seemed like a huge improvement and an opportunity worth taking, essentially. Donald Trump gets inaugurated, and suddenly the bait and switch becomes more and more obvious. And it's been 10 months now, and essentially he's delivered on nothing aside from securing the border. So I'll give him credit for that. I was expecting a bit more, just a tad bit more. And apparently,
Yep. Amen, Clinton.
that makes me a panikin, and that makes
Yeah, he's a panikin. So that's our boy Clint. Clint the panikin. Just be more like Benny Johnson, Clint. Just be more like establishment shill Benny Johnson that came out of nowhere. Came out of nowhere. Becomes one of the biggest commentators with the most access. Totally organic. Be more like Jack Posobiec, who has millions of followers but can't get 100 likes on a post. Jack Posobiec is the lowest hanging ratio on fucking X. It's amazing. I love it so much. I have trolled Jack Posobiec so hard in the last month with his Fed control narrative bullshit about Charlie Kirk's assassination. It is atrocious. Absolutely atrocious. Yeah, Cappy called out Posobiec. It's true. Yeah. Binder boys. All of them.
That would be enough to collapse the current paradigm and change the whole planet.